I'm going to talk to you today about Confluence 3.5, JIRA 4.3, and a little bit beyond. We've got about 25 minutes, and there's a lot of material. So if I raise questions that don't quite get answered, please come and see me in the breaks and events. I'm happy to talk with you further. There's not time for demos and things like that, but we can talk further and maybe answer some of your questions offline. So I'm going to start by talking about Confluence 3.5. Both 3.5 and 4.3 came out 2 or 3 weeks ago in the last month, and they were paired releases because they both are the first to support embedded crowd, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes. So Confluence 3.5 resolved about 1,000 user votes. It's going to bring a lot of new features. Most of the votes that it satisfied were around user management, which has been kind of a sore point, particularly for Active Directory users. So we'll touch on that in a bit, but in summary, Confluence 3.5 lets you create, share, and discover more content. So we'll talk about each of these things. And let's get on to sharing and discovering. So, Confluence, it makes it easy to create a lot of content very quickly. And one of the problems you get is you get all these great ideas, you get all this great content, and then you have to find a way to drill into it, to find the stuff you're interested in. And so we've got a lot more options now in Confluence 3.5 to help you do just that. We've got the share button, which lets you, instead of the pull model where people have to subscribe to your content, push lets you say, I want to explicitly share this with a group of people, with individuals, and say, can you please comment on this? And the notifications go out by email. They get a nicely formatted message that takes them back to the discussion. We also have auto watch. That's what the messages look like. We also have auto watch, which is a nice setting. So the things that you comment on, the things that you make changes to, are most likely the things you're interested in Confluence. So if there are 10,000 pages, but you've commented on 5 in the last week, you can automatically watch those. And when other people comment on them, other people make changes to them, you get notifications. So we also have, you can watch blogs in a space in addition to pages. And you can, let's see parts of this. You can also have, we also have ways of organizing the content at the space level. Previously we had the dashboard, you have My Spaces, you have Team Spaces. But a lot of activity wasn't organized very well. So now we have a space directory where you can say these are the sales spaces, these are the development spaces, and it gives you another way to drill down into that. And you also will find that the dashboard now has an activity stream that gives you these same kind of groups. So there's also a lot more options for embedding media and working with code. First of all, HTML5 drag and drop is now a reality. Like many developers, when Google Gears closed up shop, we were left with some interesting options, and we went with HTML5 for looking forward to the future. So now if you have a browser that supports HTML5, we use HTML5 drag and drop for attachments. And you'll see that the drag and drop support works in a wider and wider range of contexts. It used to be there'd be small little postage stamp size places where you could drag content, and there's more and more places where you can drag content now. So we also have overhauled the code macro, which is very useful in a development environment, but was aging a bit. And now it's going to be easier to use. It's going to be give you more options for formatting it in the ways that people expect to see it. There was always the idea that you could have a different look for XML, a different look for Java, a different look for Python, but now it's a reality. There are different color schemes. You can make it look the way people are going to see it when they're working in their development environment, so that there's less of a disconnect there. We also have greatly improved multimedia macro. I don't know how many people have used the macro browser, but now a lot of the power that you would get from wiki markup, where you had advanced options for multimedia, you now have these options when you drag media into the rich text editor. You get the options to control the width, the height, how it loads. So you get more of the power with less of the work. And We're having a lot more shortcuts to get to these things. If you're a wiki markup user, wiki markup users in the house? Anybody? Okay, we'll get back to that in a little bit. So when you start doing things like typing exclamation point to insert multimedia, you'll get a pop-up dialog that helps you, that meets you halfway, gives you the ability to insert an image or multimedia, and it's aware of what attachments you have on the page, so it gets you where you're trying to go as quickly as possible. So the JIRA integration has really improved in 3.5. First of all, how many people delegate to JIRA? They use JIRA as their user management. Anybody? Good. So we make it even easier now. Right now, both JIRA and Crowd in the newest versions are backed by an embedded version of our Crowd product. And now you have a menu that you can use on screen to configure your system to support delegating to JIRA. There's no more messing with XML files. There's no more restarting. It's just a process that you go through as an administrator, point and click documentation, and it's completely overhauled as well. So you're not making direct database calls. There's no worries there. We've also made it possible to manage application links between the servers to make your Confluence instance aware of your JIRA instance, which is going to pay some benefits right here. So I don't know, how many of you have used the JIRA issues macro? Not very many. Well, but you have to go to JIRA, you have to find a search, and then you have to right-click the link to an XML version of the search, and then you have to paste that into the JIRA issues macro. Not really natural, but now what you've got, you make Confluence aware of your JIRA instance, you go to insert the JIRA issue, you can create a JIRA issue from within Confluence, you can search for an individual issue and display just that issue within Confluence, or you can search for a range of issues and display that within Confluence, and you can do that using the JQL language that's built into JIRA, all without leaving Confluence. So here we see inserting a single JIRA issue, and here we see that we're searching for a range of issues. You can see that it displays like the old JIRA issues macro, but there's no XML, there's no copying and pasting, there's no tabbing back and forth. It's all integrated. So there's a lot of help for Confluence administrators. We have also a few other features that we'll talk about briefly. So first of all, whenever you load a new version of Confluence from now on, you'll have a what's new dialog, which helps get your users used to the new features. If there are changes in the look and feel, it helps ease them into it. It only comes up once, you opt out of it. You also have the ability to configure this somewhat to say, okay, we have our own training, our own branding, we want to have a little different messaging behind the new version. Let's say, for example, you switch to a new user management and you want to tell them, look, you're going to need a new password the first time you come in, and here's how you get it. In other words, it gives you a way to control the transition from one version to the next and to educate your users. We also have embedded Crowd, which is what we're calling improved LDAP here, but it gives you the ability to, within the web interface, set up LDAP integration, including with Active Directory, including with nested groups, which has been a hugely, wildly popular feature request that is finally satisfied. So, and all of this is done within the web interface. There's no more. It used to be you had to edit at least one and possibly two XML files and restart. And you had a command line tool to test your LDAP settings. It was a painful process, and this is going to be a lot better. So there's, I think this is scheduled jobs, right? So scheduled jobs are another thing that's kind of painful. There's an XML file where you can say, okay, that backup that runs at midnight, I want it to run at 3 a.m. because a few of our users in another office are still online at midnight. We were going to run that at 3 a.m. But now, instead of editing an XML file, instead of restarting, you go into the web interface, you see the list of jobs, you can change the timing, have it take effect immediately. If there's a job that's causing problems, you can set it to run once every 10 years. In other words, it gives you control over the things that have been happening in the background. You also have, and this is really an interesting one, if you haven't logged in yet, Confluence will try to pick up your language settings from your browser, and it will try to use the installed language packs that it has available to satisfy that. So even before you log in and before it knows your language preference, it will try to put up the content in your browser's language. So we also have the Support Tools plugin, which gives you the ability to, among other things, scan your logs for known problems. So before you even know you have a problem with, let's say, something that's likely to lead to deadlocks down the road or likely to lead to performance issues, before you even know that you have a problem, you can scan your logs, look through the list of results returned, and you can actually fix things before they become serious issues that affect your users. We also have an improved support request feature, which anonymizes the information that you send to Atlassian support and also provides more of the information they need to help you get your problem resolved. This is another shot of the, right. So we have, I'll mention briefly Safari 5 support as we move forward. We have support for a wider range of browsers, Safari, and I believe Chrome, at least one of the new releases. We have keyboard shortcut tips, which is great. We're moving more and more to things that you can do without your hands leaving the keyboard. In both products now, when you hit the question mark, it'll tell you what can you do with the keyboard. And there's a huge range of things that you can do very quickly to navigate around. And also, whenever you see a contextual menu, it'll tell you, okay, if you got here with a mouse, here's how you get here with the keyboard. So if you're a touch typist or if you're someone who's really used to doing these kind of things, it's pretty useful. There's also updated the avatars. They've been kind of stagnating for a while. I don't know how many of you are using JIRA 4.2, but we also introduced profile pictures and avatars there as well in 4.2. You're going to have the same kind of avatars on both systems. These are just the defaults for people who don't upload a picture, but of course you can upload a picture, which I think helps to take some of these textual conversations and really kind of make them personal. Give you a sense that there is another human being working together with you on the content. So, there's also, the panel macro is one of the more powerful macros in Confluence, and yet it's been kind of hard for people to get the power, absolutely. You get a lot more control over that now. So, briefly, JIRA 4.3. Again, I'm going to go through, this is ordinarily an hour talk. I'm going to go through at high speed and touch on some points. You have the same avatars and user experience now in 4.3. Issue linking has been improved. It's a lot easier to manage the links. It used to be kind of painful. When you go to assign issues to people, if you're working on a group of issues, it'll remember that you've been assigning them to this team of people, and it'll come back and help you by suggesting out of